Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at ANLOG, which is a layer zero blockchain.
Ooh, layer zero.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
I know what you're thinking. Layer zero. What is that?
Okay.
Like, have we gone deeper than layer one?
Yeah.
Deeper than layer two?
Right.
Is there a basement level of blockchain?
Right.
And,
The meta basement.
yeah, the meta basement of blockchain, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like the bedrock, the foundation on which all of the other blockchains are built. So your layer ones, your layer twos, all kind of built on top of this layer zero.
Interesting.
So we're working from a report from Token Metrics Research, and it's about ANLOG. So ANLOG, this layer zero blockchain, what's really interesting is its ambition to be omnichain.
Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
imagine a world where all the blockchains can talk to each other,
All right.
seamlessly share information, work together.
Gotcha.
That's the grand vision of ANLOG. So
Yeah.
it has the potential to kind of revolutionize the way we interact with the decentralized web.
Yeah, if we can get all these different blockchains to play nice with each other, that would definitely change things.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm already intrigued, but I'm kind of wondering how this all works. The report mentions all this stuff, like a time chain, a time graph,
A time graph.
an event data marketplace.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like we're going into like sci-fi territory here.
Yeah, it does sound pretty futuristic.
Yeah.
But I think when you break it down, it's pretty elegant.
Okay.
So at the core of ANLOG is this time chain, which acts as its central ledger. But here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of using the usual proof of work, or even proof of stake, ANLOG relies on something called proof of time.
Proof of time.
Okay.
I'm going to need some help wrapping my head around that.
Sure. So imagine like a giant clock,
Okay.
right? A synchronized clock that's shared across the entire network. So
Yeah.
instead of miners solving all these like complex puzzles, the nodes in the ANLOG network prove that they've been keeping accurate track of time. So the longer they participate and they maintain this accurate timekeeping, the more trust they earn within the system.
Okay.
It's a really clever way to ensure security and efficiency without having to rely on that energy-intensive mining process.
So it's kind of like a network where everyone is incentivized to be a really, really good timekeeper. I like that.
Yeah.
But what about this time graph thing? Is that where they keep all the like timesheets or something?
Not quite. It's more like a giant database that collects and organizes all of the event data from the time chain.
Okay.
And remember, we're not just talking about transactions here. It's any event that happens on any connected blockchain.
Right.
So it could be a smart contract execution, a token transfer, even just a simple data update.
So it's like a universal blockchain history book.
Exactly. And that history book is really valuable. That's where the event data marketplace comes in.
Okay.
So this marketplace is a decentralized platform where nodes can actually buy and sell this verified event data.
Interesting.
Yeah. So imagine a researcher who needs data on a specific DeFi protocol, or a developer building a dApp that needs like real-time market data from different blockchains.
I can see how all these pieces start to fit together. But how does the data actually move between blockchains?
Yeah.
The report mentions a Tesseract node, which again sounds very sci-fi to me.
It does. It sounds like something straight out of Marvel. But the Tesseract node is a special type of node that basically acts as a bridge between different blockchains.
Okay.
It can pull event data from one chain and then securely transmit it to another, kind of like a universal translator for blockchain data.
Okay. So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
ANLOG wants to create this world where you can transfer tokens, execute smart contracts, access data from any blockchain,
Yeah.
all within like one seamless ecosystem. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But why is this such a big deal? I mean, we have a ton of blockchains out there already.
Yeah, that's true. The blockchain space is definitely booming. We've got this massive market, like $1.6 trillion market,
Yeah.
but it's fragmented.
All right.
All these different blockchains, they're operating in isolation, makes it really hard for them to interact.
Yeah.
You know, it's like trying to build a global network, but all the phones can only call other phones from the same company. It's just not efficient. It limits what we can really do.
So ANLOG is trying to solve the problem of blockchain interoperability.
Yeah, that's the big goal.
That's pretty ambitious.
It is. But think about the possibilities. ANLOG is aiming to make cross-chain communication as simple as using the internet. Imagine transferring value from Ethereum to Solana as easily as sending an email or accessing DeFi services on multiple chains with just a click, all while enjoying lower fees and faster speeds. That's the future that ANLOG is building.
Okay. That sounds pretty revolutionary. Now that's a game changer.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about the time chain, the time graph, the event data marketplace, Tesseract nodes, which
Mhm.
still all sounds pretty sci-fi to me. But how does all of this translate into actual, tools and solutions that people can use?
Mhm.
How is Analog making this vision a reality?
Well, that's where things get really exciting. Analog has developed this suite of products designed to bring this vision to life, starting with something called Analog Watch.
Analog Watch, does that tell me the time on all the different blockchains?
Well, it's a lot more powerful than that. Think of it as your window into the entire Web3 world.
Okay.
Analog Watch gives you quick and secure access to data from any connected blockchain through a unified API.
All right.
So imagine tracking your assets, monitoring market movements, getting real-time notifications, all in one place.
That sounds incredibly useful. I'm already thinking I could get rid of all my other blockchain trackers, just use Analog Watch for everything. But what about developers? Is there something for them in Analog?
Absolutely. Analog has something called the GMP SDK, and this is where things get even more interesting because it goes beyond just transferring tokens between chains.
Oh, eh?
The GMP SDK actually allows developers to build applications that can execute any function on any connected blockchain.
So it's not just about moving money around. You're saying developers could build dApps that interact with different blockchains in this truly interconnected way.
You got it.
Wow.
Think about the possibilities. We could see dApps that combine the best features of all these different blockchains,
Okay.
offering users a level of functionality and user experience that's just not possible today.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've got the time chain, the time graph, the marketplace, the watch, the SDK. It sounds like Analog has a lot going on. Underpinning all of this is this super secure and efficient time chain, which is actually moving away from a nominated proof-of-stake system
Yeah.
to this new proof-of-time protocol.
Right, and this shift is really significant because
Yeah.
it suggests that Analog is moving towards a more decentralized and equitable system where anyone can participate in securing the network,
Oh,
not just a select few. And it ties in really nicely with that overall vision of an open and accessible blockchain ecosystem.
that's great. This is all incredibly fascinating. But there's one crucial piece of the puzzle we haven't really talked about, the Analog token.
The ANLOG token.
Where does it fit into all of this? What role does it play in this Analog ecosystem?
That is a great question, and it's the perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive. So, ANLOG is the fuel that powers this entire analog ecosystem, has a dual role, utility and governance.
Ooh. This is where things are going to get interesting. Stay tuned, listeners, because we're about to dive into the world of Analog and explore how this token is shaping the future of analog and the omnichain vision. Okay, so we've established that Analog is like the beating heart of the analog ecosystem. What does that actually mean? It's not just like a digital collectible, is it?
No, not at all. Analog has real utility within the network. So first and foremost, you need it to become a validator on the time chain. Remember that proof of time mechanism we were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, to participate in that and help secure the network, you need to stake your analog tokens.
Ah, so it's like putting your money where your mouth is,
Yeah.
showing your commitment to the network.
Exactly. And the more analog you stake, the more influence you have on the network's consensus. But staking isn't the only way to participate. Analog also gives you voting rights in the governance of the protocol.
Ah, so you get to have a say in the future of analog. What kind of things would you vote on?
Everything from major protocol upgrades and changes to the fee structure, to how the treasury is managed, even which new blockchains get integrated. Holding Analog basically gives you a voice in how Analog evolves.
That's pretty cool. So it's kind of like owning a share in a company. But instead of getting dividends, you get to shape the direction of a cutting-edge blockchain project.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And as Analog grows and matures, the value of Analog will likely increase as well. But it's important to remember that like any investment in the crypto space, there are some inherent risks.
Always good to keep that in mind.
Mhm.
But beyond staking and voting, are there other ways to actually use analog?
Within the Analog ecosystem, the report mentioned transaction fees, premium features, even this event data marketplace. Any clues as to how this might work? Well, that's where things get a little bit more speculative, because the report wasn't super detailed on the wider utility of Analog. But they did suggest that transaction fees on the network might be payable in Analog, which would create constant demand for the token. And there were some hints about premium features for the Analog Watch and the SDK that you might need Analog to access.
So potentially a lot more use cases on the horizon.
Potentially, yes. And don't forget about the event data marketplace. While the details are still a bit unclear, it's very possible that Analog could be used to buy and sell data from different blockchains, which would directly tie the token's value to the growth and activity of the entire ecosystem.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Sounds like ANLOG could be a lot more than just a governance token. It could really be the key to unlocking a whole new level of utility and value within this analog network.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so exciting as Analog develops and releases more information about the Analog tokenomics. We'll have a much clearer picture of its long-term potential. But even with what we know now, it's clear that Analog is a vital piece of the analog puzzle.
Absolutely. I'm really eager to see how it all plays out. Speaking of playing out, where does ANLOG go from here? What's next on the roadmap?
Well, the report outlines some pretty exciting milestones. They plan to expand the number of blockchains that are supported by the network, so essentially onboarding more and more of the crypto world into this omnichain ecosystem.
That's key, right? The more blockchains they connect, the more valuable the whole system becomes.
Exactly. And along with that, they're going to keep developing the GMP SDK, adding more features and tools for developers. Imagine a world where building cross-chain applications is as easy as building a regular website. That's the goal.
That would be huge for
Right.
DeFi, for gaming.
Forever. Exactly. And they're also working on new features for the Analog Watch, making it even easier for users to track their assets, monitor markets, and interact with the omnichain world.
Okay, so they're firing on all cylinders, building out the technology, expanding the network, empowering both users and developers.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They're also planning to release more information about Analog's tokenomics, which I know a lot of people are waiting for. And they're gearing up for a big marketing campaign to raise awareness about the project and get more people excited about this omnichain future.
Okay, so a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
But we can't forget, this is still a relatively new project. There are going to be challenges and obstacles along the way. What did the Token Metrics report have to say about potential risks and downsides?
Well, they highlighted a few key areas to watch. First and foremost, competition. Analog isn't the only player in the interoperability space. There are other projects out there trying to solve the same problem.
Right. It's inevitable. Whenever you have a revolutionary idea,
Ah,
other people are going to try and replicate it or come up with their own version.
exactly. So Analog needs to stay ahead of the curve, constantly innovating, finding ways to differentiate itself from the competition.
Makes sense. What else did they mention?
Another potential challenge is regulatory uncertainty. The crypto space is still largely unregulated, and governments around the world are still figuring out how to approach this emerging technology. So new regulations could definitely impact Analog's operations, especially when it comes to cross-border transactions and the use of Analog.
Yeah, that's always a concern in the crypto world. It's a bit like the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
And the rules are constantly changing.
That's a good analogy. And the report also pointed out that Analog's success really hinges on its ability to attract a large and active user base. They've built this fantastic technology, but it won't matter if people don't use it.
So it's all about building a thriving community around the platform.
Exactly. And that's not always easy. It takes effective marketing, strong community engagement, and a really compelling user experience.
It sounds like Analog has a lot on its plate, but also a huge amount of potential. I'm excited to see how this plays out. What about you?
I'm equally intrigued. Analog is tackling a problem that's fundamental to the future of blockchain technology. If they can pull it off, the implications are enormous.
Imagine a world where you can seamlessly move assets and interact with applications across all these different blockchains without even thinking about it. That's the promise of Analog, and it's definitely a promise worth exploring. But before we get too carried away, dreaming about the future, let's ground ourselves back in the present for a second. The report also included a really interesting fundamental analysis of Analog, which I think will help us understand the project's strengths, weaknesses, and its overall potential. Okay, so let's dive into this fundamental analysis from the Token Metrics Research Report. I'm always curious to see how these reports kind of assess a project's chances. It's not just looking at the tech rate.
Yeah, they take like a more holistic view. They consider everything, the team, the tech, the market opportunity, even the competition. It's about separating the hype from the reality and determining whether the project can actually succeed.
So what's the verdict on Analog? Did it pass the test?
Well, the report was actually pretty bullish on Analog's long-term potential. They gave the project high marks for tackling a really important problem in the blockchain space, this interoperability issue. They acknowledged it's a tough problem to solve, but they believe that Analog has like a unique and effective solution.
Okay, that's good. Encouraging. I'm sure they pointed out some weaknesses too, though, right? No project is perfect.
Sure, of course. They highlighted a few areas where analog could face some challenges. Competition is a big one, as we mentioned earlier. There are other projects out there. They're trying to do the same thing, so analog needs to show that its tech is better and that it can attract enough users and developers.
But it needs to build that network effect. What else did they point out?
They also had some concerns about the lack of detail. Regarding the analog tokenomics, they understand that the project is still early, but more transparency there would definitely increase investor confidence.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's hard to judge the potential of a project when you don't have all the info about its token.
Mhm.
But overall, it sounds like the report was pretty positive. What stood out to you as Analog's biggest strengths?
I was really impressed by the team and the strength of their vision. They've clearly identified a problem, and they're very dedicated to solving it. They're not just following trends, they're building a solution for a real problem.
I like that. I always look for projects with a strong team
Hmm.
and a clear purpose.
Okay.
Sounds like Analog checks those boxes.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back to the listener for a sec. What does this all mean for someone who's just hearing about Analog for the first time? Why should they care?
That's a great question. I think the main takeaway here is that analog has the potential to be a game changer for anyone who uses the decentralized web. If their vision of an interoperable blockchain ecosystem actually comes true, it will unlock a whole new level of functionality and user experience.
It's all about making things easier,
Yeah.
more efficient, and more accessible for everyone. Think about it. Lower fees, faster speeds, access to more dApps and services, all in one seamless environment.
Exactly. And it's not just about convenience either. Analog is trying to build a more inclusive blockchain ecosystem where anyone can participate, no matter their technical skills or how much money they have.
I like that. A level playing field. Excited to see how it all plays out. Analog is a project that could really change the way we use the decentralized web. But as always, we encourage our listeners to do their own research, form their own opinions,
Yeah,
and be cautious with any investments.
absolutely. It's so important to be informed, understand the risks and the rewards.
This has been an incredible deep dive into Analog. We've learned a lot about the time chain, about the potential of an on-chain future, about the Analog token. But now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Analog? Are you excited about the potential of an interconnected blockchain world?
What kind of dApps do you think will emerge in a world where blockchains can talk to each other as easily as we browse the web? Share your thoughts with us on social media. We'd love to hear your ideas.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of blockchain.